to do that. It's interesting that if you want a glimpse into the future, just have a look at how any 15, 16 or 17-year-old operates with technology today. My son is 18, he's just left school, and he and his friends use technology in this manner. They would finish school, they would come home, they would log on to their laptop computers, because schools have laptop in the classroom initiatives happening, and automatically they'd log on to MSN or something similar to that, and they'll start communicating with their friends by way of their user groups. So for them, technology is just something very standard. Now, those people haven't entered the workplaces yet, but if you're looking for drivers of innovation, I truly believe that you need to tap into the younger skill sets or the natural attributes of people who just see technology as everyday drivers. Also too, if you look at things such as podcasting, although the Australasian Management Centre is a Perth-based company, we do a lot of work in Singapore, and one company that we work with does webcasting. And going back 2 years ago, this particular organisation had a subscriber base of 20,000 people out in the region. So we would actually do a seminar similar to this that would be videotaped, and that would go out to 200,000 people within the region of Malaysia, Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka and Singapore. 2 years on, as of the beginning of this year, they now have just over 200,000 subscribers. So what's interesting is that trend hasn't hit over here yet in Australia, but I'll certainly be pursuing that by way of webcasting, and my envisage is for this forum to actually be podcast in the next 6 months, because I see that as a growing trend. So thanks very much for that, Linda. Appreciate your insights. Our third speaker is Rob Lester. Rob will be focusing on the business reality of emerging business trends, but with a primary focus of people linking into technology. Rob Lester is the Acting General Manager of the Department of Planning and Infrastructure with licensing. And during his presentation, Rob Lester will provide you with insights into the real issues associated with implementing technology into an already busy working environment. His major focus will be on the need for effective resources, both physical and human resources, to assist with the implementation of innovation initiatives. Rob is currently the Acting General Manager of Department of Planning and Infrastructure with the Licensing and Business Unit, and it has an annual budget of over $60 million and receives approximately $1.3 billion on behalf of the state and has around 600 staff. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rob Lester.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning, so thanks for having me. And Greg, thanks very much for that introduction. I must say I am a little intrigued by that opening slide of yours, Greg, with the bucket and spade. And I suppose when I saw that, I walked in wondering whether I was a bit overdressed, whether I should have just had the boardies on or something. But I noticed that everyone else is in the same dress attire, so I'm a little comforted by that. So it'll be interesting to know a little bit more about what that means later on, Greg. My theme today is very much about people, as Greg said, and listening to Linda and Colin, and we haven't conspired here, a couple of their pertinent points are very consistent with the theme that I want to present today. But my message is very, very simple, so the presentation will in fact be very, very simple. And if you take nothing else away from what I say to you today, I hope that you will remember that it's all about the people. It's all about people, and I guess that's a very simple message that I just want to leave with you, because I think that's a powerful thing to take away. Well, what I want to do is talk about the importance and power of people in the world of emerging technologies. And I want to highlight to you that people must be your priority. Just a quick show of hands, how many people here are either managing people or managing clients, customers? And I'm guessing, yep, that's about right, most people here. I suppose that's why you're here. So I don't think I need to tell you the bleeding obvious almost, and that is managing people and their expectations is probably the hardest thing you do. You know, that's how I see it. It's the toughest gig that you can have, is actually managing people and their expectations, whether that's your people or whether that's your clients. But equally, it's probably the most important thing you do. So it's the hardest, but it's the most important, and that's why I say to you, it's about the people. Getting the people issues right and keeping it as the main focus is pretty critical. Having said all that, it's still a balance, and it's a difficult balance. The most important thing to remember in the climate of increasing technological advancement is that people still and will always matter. People remain the central driving factor in everything that we do. Just ask yourself the question, why do we implement better systems? Why do we go about all the changes in technology and everything we do? And for me, the answer is pretty simple. It's to better serve, it's to better accommodate, it's to better cater for people. So again, it's back to that theme of people. And if you think of those two, that point, there's a very simple formula that I'd like to just share with you. Very simple. That is, good people and good technology equals success. But again, it's all about balance. And you can't have great technology and forget the people. Let's just think about some of the advancements that have occurred in the world over recent times or even over a long period of time. Many of them will come to mind readily. And then if you think a little bit more about why do the biggest and best firms in the world still spend such a large amount of money, time, effort, just on recruitment? And if you think about that, it's because they want the best people. In a customer-focused environment, you can introduce new technologies, but at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, our customers, my customers, your customers, ultimately still want to talk to a person. A well-trained and sympathetic voice at the end of a phone line will retain your customer's loyalty when the new technology you've invested in has failed on you. I suppose we've all had that experience. How many of us have actually been frustrated in that way? When you need to actually talk to a human, go and visit a human because something's failed. What comes to mind to me is about the banks. If you think about the way the banks have evolved in recent years, 10 years, whatever it is, they've moved away from that very face-to-face transactional environment. And I'm an old bank boy from 100 years back. These days they want you to feed things into walls and they want you to use internet. And that's all well and good for the young folk that Greg highlights, but it's not so good for a lot of other people. And one of the banks that I think seems to do this fairly well in my view, and I'm not here to promote them, is the Bendigo Bank. And they took a view some years back that they wanted to be a more community-central bank, that they were concerned that communities had lost access to basic banking services. And looking at Bendigo's site, they believe a strong focus on community is essential to its long-term prospects. So again, it's back to that issue of people. If I could just spend a couple of minutes telling you a little bit about the business that I'm involved in, and I have some of my colleagues here today. It's a big business. It's the business of the state's licensing system. It's about vehicles and drivers, but it's much more than that. It's a very big, very complex business. And when you think of renewing your driver's licence, or you think of renewing your vehicle registration, you think it's quite simple, but licensing is a massive complex business. And Greg touched on a couple of points. Licensing collects $1.3 billion on behalf of the state. Now, when I first started working in the licensing business nearly 12 months ago, I tried to get my head around how many zeros that is. It's a lot. And it's a lot of money that we generate for the state. And we spend about $60 million. And like any other government agency, we'll tell you that that's not enough money to do what we need to do. That's another story. We also register about 1.3 million drivers and 1.8 million vehicles, so that's a lot. And I guess when you have a look at the numbers there, we are a state that seems to love our car. So for every one person we've got registered, we've almost got 1.5 cars for us, so I'm not quite sure how we fit into those, but we love our car. We conduct about 8 million transactions a year, and we handle many millions of other inquiries, whether it be through our call centres or through inquiries generally at our front counters. And we have about 600 staff, so that's a lot of people to keep the main focus on, isn't it? We run our business out of 9 metropolitan and 6 regional licensing centres. We have 6 inspection sites, and we have a large, busy contact centre, which takes many thousands of calls a day. We also have our business conducted right around the state with about 240 agents that are our key partners. Most of that's in regional WA, but some of it's in the metropolitan area, and that's through our friends at Australia Post and through a lot of the regional shires that exist in the state. And when you look at this department called the Department for Planning and Infrastructure, which is a very diverse department providing a whole range of functions for government, licensing represents about 46% of that business, that department, so we are a big deal. I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about this database that we've got in licensing called TRELIS. And for some of you that would have read the media 18 months or so ago was a bit of a problem child for us. We call it TRELIS, it's an acronym, but I won't go there, it's just simply called TRELIS. But I want to ask you a question first, again, if I may. Is your business ready for the new technology you're about to introduce? Well, think about technology that you've already introduced and how ready was your business for that. Let me tell you that preparation is absolutely essential. You can't have too much support, too much practice as you get ready for these systems. And as I said to you, 18 months ago, there was a fair amount of media and public discussion about the technical capabilities of TRELIS when it was introduced. If I can just pause for a minute and tell you that TRELIS is actually a massive system. It's probably the second biggest IT infrastructure in Western Australia. So again, it's a big deal. And getting that right is no simple task. Like many new systems, TRELIS experienced bedding in problems in its first few months. And the one thing that when you're managing a system as big as TRELIS and when you're managing an agency in government as big as licensing, it's guaranteed to get news headlines if it doesn't go right, and we did. We had implementation delays, and that meant that we had staff that were trained many months in advance for this new system that basically, when it got to come live, how do they remember this new complex system? It was a tough gig. Technical delays also caused us difficulties and led to cynicism with a lot of our staff. And from my perspective, there was also a lack of recognition for a lot of our frontline people in terms of the impact that this was going to have on the way they do their work. The new technology did, however, significantly improve our ability to serve our customers, although I'm not sure the staff would tell you that at the time. Likewise, it did put pressure on our staff to deliver that service. And at the end of the day, when TRELIS had these initial hiccups, our people, our customers, were very unhappy. And did they let us know? You're damn right they did. They were very quick to tell us that. And so be it. I mean, you want to be a frontline officer dealing with something that wasn't quite working as they had hoped and as they had expected. Having said all that, TRELIS has provided the licensing business with a fantastic platform for the future. It allowed staff to step up and increase their skill levels. It strengthened service delivery to our customers. And there was a lot of positive team-related outcomes out of it. It's amazing how resilient the people in this licensing business are. We have a fantastic workforce of people that really are committed and passionate about what they do. And despite the fact that we gave them new technology that ultimately is and will continue to be very good, it was a problem. But they just galvanised and kept doing it and did it well. We needed to walk the line between the advances of the emerging technology of TRELIS and ensuring that the people who were expected to deliver these advances and improvements at the coalface were well trained and well supported. And I put to you that any large business would find the same issues very, very challenging. So we had a big deal, a big challenge. Any of you that run other large businesses or big government departments would find the same. Whether you do it differently, you probably might. And it brings me back to the key point. Again, it's all about people. So the temptation, as I see it, is to actually worship technology, a bit like a sacred cow, to sacrifice the good old-fashioned people brain power while we do it. So we get real focused on our technology and forget about the people. But we just must keep remembering that technology is a tool. It's not the be-all to end-all. It should empower and equip your staff to do their very best and to deliver the service that you want to your customers. It should engage your staff and provide them with a platform from which they can personally improve themselves and in turn improve your business. But innovative thinking will always be worth more. It will outperform more and in the long term than will the technology, which by its very nature will be dated and need replacing. Don't let your staff get behind. You leave them behind, then your systems will fail. Ensure you provide them with adequate support and training to complement the new technology they will be using. The danger is to just surge ahead with the advancements in the new technology that you've got, and then look over your shoulder and you find that your customers and your staff have actually been left behind. If you can remember one thing, your customers won't relate to your new technology, they will relate to the people. Good people are the core to any successful business. So as I said to you, my theme today is very, very simple, and I see the issue of emerging technology very, very simple. Focus on what really, really matters, and what really, really matters from my perspective is people. Make people the boundary or the parameter within which everything else fits. You've got to give the time to train and support staff through any change. and just allow yourself time to just get it right. I mean, I guess the pressure is always to get it in quick, and that was one of the issues for us with our TRELIS system, is we had a pressure to just do it, get it in, hurry up, it's costing a lot of money, we want to see the results. And we set ourselves unrealistic deadlines. We always tend to do that. It's better to be conservative and be ahead than the reverse. And change is not just the technical side of things. Remember, your staff and customers will always need to adjust to change, and importantly, communicate to and with them. And finally, just let me sum up by saying, organisations in a world of emerging technologies need to engage staff, train them, and ensure they feel capable and able to deliver services at least at the same level under a new or more advanced system. So, the big innovation challenge remains, in a world of ongoing, rapidly emerging technologies, to find and retain good people. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rob. There's a couple of interesting points that I've written down here. One is it's not only about dealing with the external customers, but it's also important to deal with the internal customers as well. That if you don't have the in-house things, if you don't have people supporting the in-house initiatives, then it won't get rolled out to the external customers. Other thoughts that's come from that presentation, Rob, is the importance of project planning. That links into what Colin had mentioned. That if you don't have a good plan to roll it out, which includes providing all the resources to people, then things may not happen. But also too, I remember seeing a number of years ago that from the Public Sector Management Office, they had a chart on the percentage of ageing population over the age of 45. And it's some phenomenal figure, I can't remember, but within government agencies, there's something like 40% of the workplace over the age of 45. Now that information that I saw was roughly about 3 years old. So I'd imagine it's the same across most organisations. So the provocative question that I'll just ask at the moment is, if you think about your workplace today, what would you state the average age would be? And then how will that impact on your workplace in the next 5 to 10 years? Who knows? I'll just pose that particular question. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to invite our panel speakers up to the panel, and also to like to invite Kiralee Palmer from the organisation and Jan Bryson. I don't know where you're sitting, Jan. Jan, if you can just come forward. Kiralee and Jan Bryson work with the Australasian Management Centre. They've got 2 roving microphones, and it's at this point that what we're going to do is to open up questions from the audience to our panel people. So I know it's always hard to break the ice with the first question, but I've already encouraged a few people to ask the first response. Excellent position to stand, Kiralee, because I know that Gail's going to ask a question. And that'll just sort of break the ice. But what I'd like to do is just to extend the invitation for anybody here to ask a question to the panel in general. The panel